Hi everyone, it's Rosie from Rosie's Doll Clothes Patterns here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to sew little tiny buttons, or any size button really, onto your doll clothes or any other outfit using your sewing machine. And the reason I'm doing this is because in my Facebook group someone mentioned that they don't like sewing them on. It's a lot of hassle. So I thought let's show you how to use your sewing machine. Now the first thing I'm going to show you is you need a foot where you can do a zigzag stitch, and the foot I have actually has this cool little button that you press in at the back, and that keeps the foot level. But don't worry, if you haven't got one of those, I've got a little trick to show you. I just thought I'd show you that before we started. Now the first thing we need to do is take our buttons, place them onto our fabric exactly where we want them, and just cover them with a strip of sticky tape. Then we need to set our machine up with the feed dogs lowered and on zigzag stitch. Now the width of the stitch is going to depend on the button that you're actually stitching on. So this is a little bit of trial and error initially, but it's usually around, well, with this one I found it's 2.1, but it could be 2.9. But if you come down to that sort of figure and go from there, play with it from there, you'll be able to select the right size for your button. Now what we need to do is just pop that underneath the presser foot, and if you don't have this little button, I'll show you what my little button does. If I hold that in, that holds the foot flat as I lower it. And what we want to do is line it up so that the two holes are pretty much right in the middle of our button, of our little hole in our foot there. Then what we want to do is use the hand wheel on our sewing machine to lower that needle. And I can see that I'm not quite lined up. Oh, I wonder if you can see my button. You may not be able to see my button, but what I need to do is just move that ever so slightly into the center, so that when I drop that needle, it's going to puncture through that hole. Then I continue using my hand wheel, and I'm going to do it until, my machine does a few stitches in the one spot to start with, and to sort of tie a knot. Then it'll go across to the other side. Now if I use my hand, I can see that that's going to go in the hole. If I had that, and that's set on 2.1, if I had that on something much wider, when I bring it down, it's actually going to go outside of that hole. So as I'm bringing it down, I can see, ooh, that's not going to work. So I take my needle back up and I change my size. And I did have it on 2.1, which was perfect. That will now go down in the hole. Beautiful. Now I can just put my foot down on the foot pedal and do a few stitches. Then I'm just going to tie the knot off, which my machine does several stitches in one spot. If yours doesn't do that, what you can do is change your stitch length to 0 and just do a few stitches in the one spot, or you can pull the threads out and tie a knot manually using when you're finished doing the buttons. Then just move it along to the next one, and this time I'm going to use some paper that I've folded up, and I'm going to pop that underneath the presser foot, and that will actually hold the presser foot up and flat, so that when I lower the presser foot at this time, again it is staying nice and flat. Again, I just need to make sure I'm right in the middle, and I'm not quite. Just move it slightly. The first hole, perfect. We'll do a few in a row, and then it'll go across, and it works beautifully. So I'm just going to do a few stitches, tie it off again, and then we've got one more to do. And this time, because I've got all these buttons behind it, I shouldn't need my paper underneath, because they're actually resting on the buttons that I've done first. Again, the most important thing, make sure it's centered. First one's going to work, so I know the second one will be fine. There we go. Tie off my knot, and then pull out the threads, and then just give them a snip. Beautiful. And same on the back. As I said, if you don't have that ability for your machine to tie the knots automatically, you can just use actually do one button, pull enough thread out so that you can tie a knot. Then the last thing we need to do is just pull off our sticky tape. And there you go. We've now stitched our buttons onto our fabric using our sewing machine. How easy was that?